What do you think about that in reality, though? Like, how do you feel about that in reality?
Amazing.
Right, for the US dollar, right?
Our lives were objectively better when the US dollar was backed by gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it would be a net positive, and the US would start buying a lot of Bitcoin. All right, welcome to the Never Die Podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. This is the Stay Hard semi-weekly-ish update, and we're going to be diving into the market, discussing where we are in the cycle, why are we dumping, will the ETH ETF have an impact, what's going on with the alts, are they just doomed, are we just going to all be really poor from now on, and are meme coins going to make it, plus tons more other stuff. And to start off, let's just dive into where do you guys think that we are currently in the cycle? Some are saying that the bull market's over. Some are saying we're near the start. Which is it? What is your opinions? And let's start with Andy.
Well, first off, I am excited to be here to stay hard with all of you. I'm excited about that. Can I just start there? And where are we? When we zoom out macro, we're obviously in a bull market. The entire market is up and to the right. S&P 500 new all-time highs. But when you dive in to just the world of crypto, it doesn't feel like that at this moment. But I would say the crypto cycles have typically taken a little bit more time to get to that same kind of wild and craziness, trails if it doesn't correlate exactly with the traditional stock markets. So in my opinion, based on previous cycles, based on the 4-year thing that just repeated itself over and over again, we are on the precipice of what is going to be hopefully the biggest crypto bull run we've ever seen, eclipsing the previous ones. It seems like right now, accumulation, mixed with some dumping, mixed with some sideways action before it all launches to the stratosphere.
What about that market psychology chart where it's like hope, anger, you know what I'm talking about? It's like the psychology of the market. Where would you guess we were, Andy, in that little pattern?
I feel like we had our initial little rally and stuff, and people thought that was the beginning, and then things died off like they always kind of do around the halving. It gets really boring for a while, and so people, I don't think we've entered the hope phase yet. I think we need to get out of this current correction we're in, and then we'll enter the hope phase, and then it'll be euphoria, and then it'll be frothiness, and then it'll be your Uber drivers saying, hey, what do you think about this meme coin? And then it's like, get the heck out of Dodge ASAP, that stage.
What about you, Noah? Where do you think we're at in this cycle?
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of the different cycles, we're kind of right on track, I think. I was just seeing a chart that was kind of comparing previous cycles, and it's like every time we have a drawdown that's 40% or more, I think we're around that 35% right now maybe for this cycle. But feeling it personally, I definitely have had second guesses, oh, what's going on? Why is this happening? I thought, we are all in this together. We all knew that we're going to have a bull run. It was going to go well. So I think there's just, it's kind of a difficult time for sure. And it's just, things are going down, sideways, whatever. But I think there's been different things like Germany selling, a different thing that kind of scare people. And so I think basically we have to get the paper hands out of here. We got to get those people to sell, and then we'll kind of continue upward as macro stuff starts to get better and whatnot. So I think it's just kind of how it works with the cycle and kind of the things you guys were talking about.
I was one of the people in the camp that because you had traditional money coming in, that you would see a bit of an advanced cycle, and then it could go multiple ways after that. Egg on my face a little bit, and it's kind of hard for me to believe this. So I got into crypto seriously in 2018. Started buying 2017. And in 2017 I studied for the LSAT. So you have to logic games, stuff like that. Don't let the degrees fool you. I didn't get in anywhere. It's denied everywhere. But there's a thing called a temporal fallacy. I think it's a temporal fallacy, where basically something happens in the past and you continue to believe it to be true. So that was my fear in 2018. I was everyone's talking about these 4-year patterns. I'm you can't be sure that's true forever, right? I was still buying, And then it did it. And that was my disbelief in the market. I was like, wow. I was like, it did the same thing again. And that's where I'm kind of at now, is like a different kind of disbelief. I don't feel it's like a sucker's rally. I'm like, is this really going to follow the same pattern? So if it's going to go on that, I don't know if it is. But if it's following that, then yeah, I guess we're kind of like the disbelief, or like this rally will fail. For some people, I'm not feeling much anxiety about it outside of watching my net worth crumble. I'm sure it'll come back. But I guess we're heading into the hope, if we're going to follow that same pattern, which I'm kind of capitulating to at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I would disagree with you and Andy. I would actually say that I think we're in between hope and optimism. I think like that was clear with the early rally in the cycle. People got a lot of hope. And I think why maybe the markets feel so depressing right now is because before they didn't have hope. So like any bad thing that happened is like, yeah, whatever. Like it's been bad for forever. And then they got that hope, and then they had that hope crushed. And I feel like that's really what we're feeling in the market, is that like crushing of hope, where people are like, they let their guard down, they got that hope up, they put some more money in, and then they got wrecked, and they're just like, oh. But really, it's just that last pain before we start to get into that optimistic territory where people finally are kind of like nice on Twitter, and everyone's kind of happy. But I would say it's different for different sectors. So I'd say like DeFi and maybe most alts would be maybe between disbelief and hope. So I'd agree on that. So like most alts, DeFi is probably between disbelief and hope. And I would say like NFTs are probably in the depression phase. So they're not even in disbelief yet. They're just like fully in depression. Everyone's like, I can't believe I bought this JPEG. What is wrong with me? I'm never going to make it back. And we're just waiting for later in the cycle for that.
The overwhelming majority of NFT people, people talking about NFTs are still like, they're never coming back. That's the overwhelming sentiment right now. Yeah.
Buy signal. Yeah, I saw the Bored Ape Yacht Club the other day. I think what was I looking at, volume or the floor price, and I was just blown away at like how far it's fallen. The ape token, I bought some of that last cycle, right? Oh, wow, wow.
I would say though, there's probably going to be like some of these that don't come back, just like in 2017 when we saw like some of the biggest projects were like EOS, etc. We're going to have EOSs of NFTs, right? It could be Bored Ape Yacht. Like it was like the biggest thing last cycle and it's just dead this cycle. That's totally possible. Or just a Litecoin of this cycle or whatever. So not everything's going to come back. I think there's going to be a lot of newer projects that really take the cake. Persona, but that that's where I'm with. And then I think crypto gaming's in the disbelief stage. I don't think it's in depression where people are even like really concerned about it. It's in this like weird vague state. So that's kind of my opinion. What about, why do you guys think we're dumping so hard? Noah, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, so maybe I'll start with you. Why are we just really dumping right now? We were at 70K, and then we just had like one of the biggest red candles we've had, or one of the biggest liquidation events since FTX. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to add, I think why, because I don't feel like I really know, because I just feel like, add to why I think everything that's going on is so confusing. Like, why is everyone so negative when it's like, we have a lot of like kind of positive catalysts right now. Like we have a guy that's like, very likely going to be president, talking about crypto like all the time. Like that's pretty wild and crazy that we've gotten to this point where crypto is being talked about a lot. It's being talked about in Congress. It's being talked about in a lot of these like legal hearings and things. And then
real quick, did you hear Donald Trump say that he wants to back the US dollar with Bitcoin?
Yeah, he said lots of things that are like, wow, this is crazy. And then it's like, we do have the ETH ETF. So it's like, we have all these positive things. Also, it's like, people are talking about rates coming down. Like there's so many like positive catalysts that are like, seem to be coming in the next couple of months. So it's like, I don't get why people aren't seeing those, and they're just like negative right now. So I guess it kind of shows maybe how short-term crypto people are, like short-term thinking they are, where it's like, all right, Germany's dumping tons of Bitcoin. I think they've got, I just saw today, maybe like 800K. I forget how many more Bitcoin they have to sell. They have some more to sell still, but it's like just that kind of short-term catalyst. Everyone's like maybe trying to front run that. Like, all right, I'm going to sell now, and then maybe they'll try to get back in after Germany dumps a lot. So I don't know. It's like short-term games, and that makes it kind of hard to really know why people are doing what they're doing.
Andy, are you? I kind of feel like, I don't know. I don't want to get too into politics, but I feel like you're a little bit more liberal leaning. Would that be correct?
am leaning in the direction of I want nothing to do with politics.
Did you feel that way before the debate or after the debate?
Both. My stance is I hate that these are our choices. That's my stance. I am equally pessimistic about both sides of the two-party fence that we're in America we're on. It's cool that one of them is pandering to us and saying crypto things, which is, it's good because it's bringing it front and center in the conversation. Do I think that will change anything for us? Not just by that action, but by bringing it to the conversation, obviously, yes. So yeah, I'm just not a big political guy. I try to stay out.
What do you think about the fact that Trump's going to be speaking at Bitcoin 2024, July? Are you going to that?
Yes.
Okay, he's going to be speaking there. Okay, what do you think of the possibility that he actually gets orange pilled? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's raised so much capital from crypto. He now has crypto policies, like in his presidential policy, like he laid out like the right to self-custody, the right to mine Bitcoin in the U.S. Like, he actually has an official stance policy on it. And now he's saying he wants to back the U.S. dollar with Bitcoin. So what do you think the odds are that he becomes orange pilled and actually a Bitcoin believer?
My opinion of the man is that maybe he can change his mind and thoughts about these things and truly become like a crypto believer. But I think he will become a crypto believer as far as it serves him. Like if you actually want a crypto candidate, look at Robert Kennedy, like Jr. Like that's somebody who actually has policy that's constructed around crypto things. Does he have a chance of winning in our system? Probably not. But, he's been talking about backing the U.S. dollar with Bitcoin for far longer and actually has well thought out, arguments about why he would want to do that. And he just decided himself, it seems, again, all politicians, so I plead the fifth to some degree on this, but, concise, educated arguments for why he would want to do it. Whereas on the other side, it's like, obviously there's a big buy of votes. We just saw one candidate, Trump, turn on crypto donations because more money equals better, right? Realized 19% of the U.S. population holds crypto or has been exposed to crypto in some degree. Realized that's a massive lever to pull. Don't want to get on the bad side of that. The other candidate, Biden, was fairly anti-crypto, saw what happened there, decided, I'm going to take, crypto donations as well. So, it's really hard for me to truly believe that someone like this in that position who has, at this age, 80 years old, has built his entire empire in the old world and doesn't materially need these things to continue doing what he's always done, is going to become actually orange-pilled. But for the effects of all of us, yeah, maybe more so, or maybe there will be some slight changes there. Either way, they're going to sell it as much as they possibly can.
Dude, I think it's possible. Trump built the wall, man. Trump just does stuff, and he doesn't really I feel like you need someone a little bit crazy. Like, I feel like RFK could do it. I feel like Vivek could do it, and I feel like Trump could do it. I feel like they're all crazy enough to do something like, hey, we're going to back the U.S. dollar with Bitcoin. And I don't know.
What do you think about that in reality, though? Like, how do you feel about that in reality?
Amazing.
Wait, for the U.S. dollar, right?
Our lives were objectively better when the U.S. dollar was backed by gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it would be a net positive, and the U.S. would start buying a lot of Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you that. I don't know. I really feel like if that were to happen, that'd be like the most insane bullish catalyst you could ever imagine.
That's the actual God candle. That's the God candle.
Yep. And I'm just surprised more people aren't talking about it. Like, he said on Truth Social, I saw a post on Twitter, and he said he wants to do it. And I think he's going to a Bitcoin conference. He's released an NFT collection. He's making a ton of money from it. That's how we all start. We all start making money from crypto. And then we eventually get orange pilled by wow. I really like this idea. I think it's possible. We'll see. Okay. I forget what the question was. It was, why are we dumping so hard? Why do you think we're dumping so hard, Andy?
Like Noah said, the Germany news hasn't been great. This is now Germany's of the past decade second largest mistake. The first was turning off all their nuclear reactors. Stupid bonehead move, and now they're selling a super hard form of money. And
what did you say was their third mistake? Because their first one was trying to take over the world.
Well, that was not in the past decade.
Yeah, they got smacked on that a couple of times.
Yeah, but of the past century, yes, certainly that's probably the top mistake they made. But hey, they've given us BMW and Mercedes
True.
and Audi and Porsche and Schnitzel. So I can't, be a total Germany hater. But so anyways, like Noah was also saying, like retail investors are incredibly short-term thinkers, incredibly emotional investors. They see this news, they want to dump people. Everyday people are selling their stuff. Then combine that with the Mt. Gox news that 140,000 Bitcoin are finding their way back into the hands of original holders that got affected by that back in the day. There's a lot of negative anticipation around that these people are going to sell, and so it's just it's a terrible cycle. People react to the news, they sell. Then the actual events happen and sell-off happens. People see that and they go, "Oh, I got to get out of this as soon as possible," and then they sell. So it's just a vicious cycle. We just need to get through this stuff happening. Germany needs to sell off the rest of their Bitcoin. The Mt. Gox Bitcoin needs to hit the market if it's going to, or goes in the whole long-term holders'
To add
hands.
some context to the Mt. Gox thing, a lot of they've been able to sell their claims for like forever. So for years and years and years, like these holders have been able to sell their claims. So I don't think it's like the super scary event everyone thinks, because like the claims got bought a long time ago. Those people cashed out and they're living their best life somewhere in the Bahamas. So it's not like, I think it'd be really scary if it's like they had been waiting, forever for this money and they're going to just dump it all. I think we'll see some dumping, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think.
Yeah, I'm not scared of it, but a lot of people, the people who should be getting this Bitcoin should be long-term focused Bitcoin folks. But just the idea that it's being unlocked and it's being sent to people on the market, that's a scary event for a lot of people. They just don't understand a lot of the nuances of it, unfortunately. The Germany stuff, though, is very black and white. It's like they are open market dumping this. That's more real.
I mean, I always kind of envision it like a spring being coiled. So like when we have these pullbacks like this, I think back on the COVID crash, right? So you had the COVID crash, the market dumped a bunch. But if you look at it, like after that crash, it was pretty much just up only. And it like went up pretty viciously, because when markets dump like this, it's also a buying opportunity for people that missed out to get in. And if a lot of people buy, it builds up momentum, and we can liquidate those shorts on the way up, causing even more buy pressure. So for me, I feel like, yeah, man, this has sucked with Germany selling and stuff like that. But like, this could just be like the catalyst that kicks off crypto summer, is like this sell off, and then we leverage this momentum into the fall when we see prices just start to climb.
If you look at some of the charts of like longer term holder addresses and stuff, those over the past 30 days have accumulated something like 85,000 Bitcoin. So long-term holders see it just like you just said. This is an opportunity.
All right, so I'm gonna move into some top signals check. So I already checked it this week, guys. So you're gonna have to look it up on the fly. Coinbase App Store rank is 249. So no top signal there. What about texts from friends and family? Harley, have you gotten any sort of text from friends and family about crypto, investing?
No, actually, nobody's texted me. I'm feeling a little bit lonely, but I've got no text about anything. But no,
what about
no crypto text. No crypto text.
So I've not gotten really any text from friends, but my grandma did. I think she was just trying to be nice to me. She's like, "How's that crypto thing going, son?" And so she was actually asking me some questions about some crypto stuff, and I was trying to explain it to her a little bit. But especially with like different family members, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't think it's something that you really should get into. I think you need to understand some of the more technical stuff. But, I had a nice conversation with my grandma, but that's about it.
I love it. Doing the good work of trying to reasonably orange pill the seniors out there. I haven't had any of the usual text messages or anything yet. And yeah, surprising number of Uber drivers haven't told me about the next big meme coin. Third cousin twice removed hasn't messaged me out of the blue asking about stuff yet. So none of that.
I have a question about that, actually. I'm talking about senior citizens getting orange pilled, because you're talking about Donald Trump, if he's actually behind this. Do you think Donald Trump getting orange pilled, the orange man getting orange pilled, could he orange pill senior citizen evangelicals across the heartland? Could we see
Maybe,
this? Social security payments?
I think maybe a bigger thing is like, if he got orange pilled, that'd be like the entire conservative base. Like, you know what I mean? Like the entire Republican base would probably get crypto pilled in the same way, which would also be bullish in some ways, I think. You know what? I was going to say, as far as like text from friends and family, I haven't got any of that, but like I did notice for the first time, I talked to a person about crypto because somebody asked what I did, and I like try to explain it. I always try to kind of hide that I'm in crypto because like people think I'm a criminal if I mention crypto. Yeah. I'm not kidding. They treat me like I'm a drug dealer, and like they get like really weird. they didn't get weird. And I was like, what the heck? It was multiple people in a row because like I was meeting these people and none of them got weird. They're like, oh yeah, I invested in every single one of them was like, I invested in Cardano last cycle. Every single one. I'm not even kidding. They were like, yeah, you should. I'm interested in what's going on with crypto right now. I haven't heard anything about it, but yeah, you should teach me some stuff about crypto because I didn't do really well last cycle, but I'd love to get back into it. And I thought that was interesting because that was the first time I've had that happen where I didn't get treated like a criminal. So I don't know, maybe that's bullish. Maybe retail's gotten over their crypto burns and they're like starting to come out of hibernation and they're like, yeah, maybe open to the idea. Interesting. What about macro? Okay, so I know inflation came in at lower than expectations at 3%. We had language being used by the Fed that seems to indicate that maybe a pivot to a 3% normalcy. So their original goal was 2% inflation rate, and they've been saying we're gonna go to 2%, we're gonna do 2%. But now they seem to be suggesting with their language that they might be okay sticking at 3%. What do you guys think about that? Does that what do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, so Polymarket is rating that we're going to get an 83% chance of rate cuts by September. So I don't, Polymarket's been getting a lot more attention. So I don't know how accurate, Polymarket is, but that's a good amount of people that think that we're getting rate cuts decently soon.
Yeah, and that's what I've been hearing, September.
What were those predictions before though? Like the beginning of the year, what were those predictions that by how many cuts we'd have this year, right?
It was higher. Everyone was saying they were going to get like 4 cuts this year, and then it was 3, then it's 2, and now it's like 1. So it's definitely gone down because I think people have been surprised by how strong-willed the Fed has been. But I think that's been priced in at this point. I think we kind of understand that. And if you were listening to that podcast this morning, then you heard them talk about how inflation isn't just coming from the U.S. There's inflation from outside countries too, right? Like we import a lot of different materials for what we use for a lot of these products, and we have a lot of skilled labor outside of the country that we use, and so all of that plays into inflation as well. And so there's just a reality that we can't control everything, and it might make the most sense to say, hey, 3% is the new 2%. Like we just can't fix this quick enough. Maybe over the next 5-10 years, like we'll be able to lower that, but it's not going to happen immediately. We're going to need to cut some rates because the economic situation, the whole macro situation in the U.S., like it's pretty tough having these higher rates, and that does reduce the amount of capital that's able to be allocated into like economic growth. And so I really think that's what it's going to come down to: economic growth, spurring the economy. Things are really starting to slow down. Unemployment's ticking up, and we want to see that not happen. So yeah, I think that's why we're going to see some rate cuts. I think September makes a lot of sense. I think we had a nice downtick this month, so hopefully that continues, and we'll see. So okay, cool. What about the ETH ETF? Do you guys believe that the ETH ETF will have an impact on the overall market or not? And we're going to start with you, Noah.
So it seems like it's probably going to come out. I mean, they were talking about it coming out like this week or next week. I think if it comes out earlier, like it's not going to do much because everyone's kind of negative and stuff. So I think it might have a bad start, and that will then kind of be bearish. Like then people kind of talk bad about it, so then it's going to continue to do bad for a while. But I think it will kind of come back, and maybe at these same times we're talking about rates getting cut, kind of the fall. I could see the ETF starting to do really well and actually have a big impact on crypto as a whole. But yes, it feels like it might kind of be rough to start out.
What about you, Andy?
Well, if you look at the chart for Ethereum and put it up against the Bitcoin chart just before the Bitcoin ETFs dropped, the charts look eerily similar at this stage. So does that mean we're also going to have an incredible pump of Ethereum once it drops? Because when the Bitcoin ETF dropped, the market, aside from the speculation around that ETF, wasn't looking particularly good. We were coming out of the crypto bear market. So similar market conditions to some degree. I mean, totally different in other ways, I suppose. So there's that. Will the ETH ETF do well, though? I don't know. Bitcoin One is pretty straight and simple. It's like you buy it because you want exposure to Bitcoin. But one of the things you like about Ethereum is the staking rewards, and those are not included in the ETFs. So I don't know. Will people care about that? I'm not sure. I'm really interested to see how this product does.
I've heard that same thing. But it's mostly from crypto people saying that. What I've heard from people on the ETF side, or maybe people that are more close to like traditional investors is they say that traditional investors don't care about the staking. They're not really concerned about 3%. Really, what for them, the idea is they just want general exposure to crypto. And when you look at Bitcoin and ETH, like together, it's 70% of the entire crypto market. And so in their minds, they're like, cool, I get the exposure to the crypto market. Bitcoin's the store of value. Crypto's the, app store, which finance is built on. Between those two things, like I'm pretty covered and I don't really have to think about crypto. Like if it goes up, I'm doing good. If it doesn't, whatever. But like that's really what it comes down to from what I've heard. What about you, Harley? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I actually have a question. It seems like you have your ear to the ETF streets as it is. You know people.
You know I do.
Yeah. So I've told you guys, like I manage my son's investment account that I'm like slowly building for him over time. So I've been DCAing him into some stocks. Well, one, I have the Bitcoin ETF for him, but some ETH, right? There's one, I forget who it is, ProShares, whatever it is. There's one where you can basically get like the ETH exposure, and there's one that's like a 2x leverage one. They rebalance it every day, right? So as someone, let's say I don't know anything about crypto, but I want exposure to crypto, I can go buy those right now, right? And I didn't really think about these things before the Bitcoin ETF kind of got me into buying them for my son. From an investor side, right, what is the difference, right? Like why am I waiting for the ETH ETF rather than buying these ETH products that are currently there? Does anybody know that?
You're talking about like the futures products?
No, they're not future. I don't know if they're, what's the word for them? It's the ones that's already there. So it's not a futures.
I mean, are you looking at like the grayscale ETH product?
No, I have to look it up. Let me give my answer, and I'll look it up after.
I wouldn't know because I'm not familiar with traditional finance, but I do know that there is like, just like with Bitcoin, they had similar arguments. They're like, why does anyone care about the Bitcoin ETF when we have these X Bitcoin products? And it really came down to like the pure exposure, right? Like Bitcoin ETF was pure exposure than these kind of workaround products, which is what typically exists in the market today. So whatever it is, it's some sort of workaround product with the where it's not quite the same thing. And apparently that really does matter to the TradFi folks, because we saw with the Bitcoin ETF, it broke every record that's ever existed when it went live. So
yeah, it's pure exposure mixed with some of the things that the markets traditionally love about ETFs, which is low cost index fund. And the grayscale Bitcoin product, for example, beforehand, and even when they converted over to a spot ETF, the fees are considerably higher than all the other ones, whereas the other ones are more in line with what you expect from the ETF market. But also the language around how they're built, you actually have to have the Bitcoin on the balance sheet to provide these, and the other ones are a little more loosey-goosey because they are workaround products, like Jesse said.
Do you guys know anything about the Sharpe ratio? You guys familiar with that?
I've heard of the Sharpe ratio.
So
don't know much about
in traditional investing, this is like a really big deal. Like when they look at their portfolio, like in crypto, we're just like, we buy this token because we think it'll go up. In TradFi, they're like looking at the Sharpe ratios, and they're a lot more nuanced with the way they invest. And a Sharpe ratio is basically like a way to understand risk. So like a risk-adjusted investment, right? So like something might have really high risk, but a really high upside. Another thing might have really low risk, but really low upside. And so they have this whole like system of numbers where like they're able to look at their overall Sharpe ratio based on what's in their investment portfolio. And I've heard this interesting argument from TradFi people, which is that like if you look at the numbers across the board, when you add Bitcoin and ETH into your portfolio, your Sharpe ratio goes up. And that's a good thing, or however it works, whatever. I don't know exactly how it works, but like it overall increases the goodness of your Sharpe ratio. And it's really bullish for crypto as an asset, because it's like a no-brainer for them. They're like, oh, cool, I get more risk-adjusted upside. Like, yes, I'm adding more volatility in my portfolio, but the potential upside's so high that overall, like, that number goes up. And they had a whole point to why, like, crypto is going to see a lot of adoption. Again, Bitcoin has not had its full rotation into TradFi. It's not even close. Like, you're talking about the next 5 to 10 years for these things to keep coming online. And so, and that was a really bullish case for like, if they can improve their Sharpe ratio by adding these things in, it's a no-brainer for them. And that's why we're going to continue to see them to adopt Bitcoin, ETH, etc.
It's like an asymmetrical return, right? Like you're measuring like how high can it go, how low can it go, probability of each.
Yeah, sort of. Like, I mean, you could imagine it like the idea would be like, hey, if I invest in Bitcoin, I can only maybe do a 3x or whatever. But if I invest in this meme coin, I could do a 10,000x. And so you're looking, but the risk's way higher with the meme coin. It's really low with Bitcoin. It's kind of like that, but they have an entire system to it to where they can really quantify each one.
To your point earlier, Jesse, when I brought up the staking rewards aspect of the ETF, I mean, you're right. It's a totally different world. And right now, the world that would be interested in this product, which is not the crypto world, it's the traditional finance world, they are experiencing all-time highs across many asset classes in that world right now. That whole world is not experiencing what we in the crypto space are experiencing. So all things are golden, all things are beautiful to those people right now, and a new product that's going to give them, like you said, between this and the Bitcoin one, 70% exposure to the entire crypto market, because it's a $2 trillion market cap market at the moment. It's tiny. That's probably a pretty big deal. So through that lens, through that framing, it seems like maybe this would be a pretty bullish period for ETH ETF if those folks have the same appetite as they've had for the Bitcoin one.
If you had to guess, what do you think that does to the price over the first 3 months post-launch?
To guess first 3 months, I would say it's not going to be a huge impact. I'd say we could go to 4,000. First 3 months, go to 4,000. I'd be really pleasantly surprised if we went above that. But I would say by end of year, we're at new all-time highs.
Yeah, I was thinking around 4,000. I'll say 4,200.
I mean, from bear market low, Bitcoin to recent all-time high, that was almost a 5x on Bitcoin's price. And as Harley just said a little while ago, all-time low for this cycle for ETH was around 900. So we're just right around a 3x. So $4,000 Ethereum sounds pretty good to me. $4,500 Ethereum sounds pretty good to me, if it does the same kind of thing.
3,999. So anything under that, and I win the prediction, because I'm technically the closest.
Oh, dang it. What a setup.
The price is right, baby. I don't know. So over the 3 months, so what is it right now? July 12th? July, August, September, October. Into October. Potential rate cut in September.
October.
That's going to be super bullish. Huh? October. There you go.
There you go.
Ready to no nut November? We're cruising. Let me see. 4,300.
4,300.
4,300.
I like
it. Write it in the books. We're going to get the rate cut in September. 83% of poly markets. I'll take the odds. We'll do that. Doesn't matter how wrong those have been before. We're going with it. And then we're going to go right into October, and we're cruising, baby. 4,300.
I'm gonna change mine. I'm gonna say 47.39.
Ooh.
We're getting more and more bullish, folks.
If I look at Bitcoin's chart from the day the ETF was approved to its all-time high, that was a 58% increase in price. So a 58% increase in price from today's Ethereum price is $4,800-ish Bitcoin, $4,700 Bitcoin.
I love it.
Ethereum.
I love it. All right. So moving on. So we obviously had this dump, but we've noticed that alts are bleeding extra hard compared to Bitcoin and ETH. Like alts have really, really taken a hit. I want to start with you, Andy. Why do you think alts are extra going down compared to Bitcoin and ETH?
In the crazy world of crypto, the safety asset is Bitcoin. Everything else is risk on. So when Bitcoin starts to falter with its overwhelming dominance in the space, everybody freaks out and they dump everything in preparation for what they assume is going to happen. And then in doing so, they cause what always happens, which is the alts just bleed against Bitcoin, which has always been the case. The Bitcoin dominance is just so ridiculously high, and it dominates the actual market sentiment so much. That people forget just how tiny the alt space is just compared to Bitcoin in the space, and just how tiny the entire crypto space is. Very, very modest dollar amounts in global macroeconomic terms completely alter the trajectory of this space, and altcoins just experience that to the nth degree because they are teeny tiny, finite little islands in this ocean of crypto.
Would you say? I mean, I feel like you referenced it earlier, but I feel like in 2020 we saw the same thing happen, where alts went up and then they crashed really hard, and then they went to an epic rally later in the cycle.
Oh yeah, in 2020 when that happened, as we were crashing, I was like, oh man, why didn't I sell these then? Because I thought that, I thought we were just going up from here. And then later in the cycle, I'm like, I'm really glad I did not, because those gains were, dwarfed by what actually the real gains that happened later that cycle. But yeah, it's like the same story, just on repeat. It's like the crypto world is just still so small that it seems to like not be able to break outside of those market moves yet.
I think to add to what Andy's saying, I think there's so many, like we have just so many tokens now. Like over the last couple months, there's been so many new tokens, so many layer twos. You got ZK Sync, you've got all these restaking tokens coming out. So there's just like so many projects. And I think a lot of people are kind of trying to jump on like, all right, we're in the bull market. Like now's the time to launch the token. And so you launch all these tokens that are, altcoins, and they kind of just like suck up all the liquidity. And we're getting like all of our retail is getting spread amongst all these different coins and tokens, and there's just not enough demand now for all of them, I don't think, because we're kind of in this kind of bad time. So then everything just kind of suffers as a result, I think. So I think there's too many tokens right now and not enough demand for all of it with where we're at.
CoinGecko lists 14,000 tokens, by the way.
Well, there's actually, if you count the meme coins, it's in the millions. Like in 1 month, we did like 1 million meme coins. I would say I've heard that argument. And the more I've thought about that argument, the more I've like almost found myself disagreeing with it, in the sense that there might be a lot of tokens, but there's not a lot of like use cases. Like I said, 1 million of those would be just meme coins. And where it's like, okay, cool. If you're going to gamble on meme coins, that's one thing you're doing. But it's not really, it's not like all those things take away as a whole from the space. And then a lot of them's like alt layer ones, layer twos. That's like one thing where I feel like if there was like a breakout app, like again, crypto gaming took off, capital would still find an easy way to flow into the crypto gaming space, because that's like it's a blue ocean, right? Like it's just a really open, wide open space. And I feel like there might be a lot of older tokens too that are around that they're just kind of like dead. They're floating. Nobody's really paying attention to it. So if you look at like the tokens that are actually have solid fundamentals, that are actually doing something and building something innovative, in that sector, there's actually not a lot. It's not like there's a lot of really, really good tokens or really, really good innovative things being built. I think there's a much smaller pool in that sense. So I just think that like the market has been disconnected from fundamentals. And once we see any sort of alt rotation, people will start to look at those things again, like revenues, what people are actually building, et cetera. And then those things will really stand apart, and there's not really that many of those like good alts out there to invest into.
And I will also add to that if you do look though, when the market cap of crypto does not materially change, it stays relatively flat or stable, there are still pockets of narratives and trends where certain coins and tokens pop off. And then they have their inevitable corrections, and then you see a new group of things pop off. You can see these money flows within crypto, whereas there's nothing particularly new, like new capital inflow coming into the space, but it's just the smarter money, the savvier money, I don't know, flowing around through the crypto space, moving it. So yeah, I see both ends of that argument. It's hard to put a finger on it.
Yeah, I would almost say that maybe attention, there could be something about attention, Noah, though, when you're saying fragmentation, in that like there's so many tokens to pay attention to. But I think in people's heads, we do kind of like condense all that, where we're like, okay, these are L2s. These are like the VC airdropped tokens. These are the meme tokens. So there is still room to grow in that sense of like, like I said, if we had a breakout sector, like if DeSci started popping off, I think like capital would find a really easy way to allocate into there, and it wouldn't be confused among all these tokens, because that's a unique sector where there's not a lot of unique sectors to allocate capital into. What are your thoughts, Harley?
I think I have a couple on it. I don't know how much of it, like the compounding of it is like liquidations or anything like that beyond the bleeding that alts always do when Bitcoin goes down. But there's a couple ideas. One is like they're low conviction speculative plays that people recently got into, right? I think there's a lot of alts that people just got into. They're like, the market's back, baby. Here we go. And then they started getting hammered and they're like, abort, right? Like this was a low conviction. And I think the other thing is this is like the first big cycle. It's not that airdrops didn't exist before, but it's this huge cycle of airdrops. And I'd be interested to see if like projects that have done airdrops like Arbitrum and Wormhole and Pith and all these ones, if they're down worse than other projects. at this point, right? Because it's no cost capital. And I don't know if psychologically that makes people take more profits, or I guess like at a substantially less rate, or if they'll hold it longer. But I think that could be part of it. Is people are like, well, I got this airdrop, it's down 60% from when I got it. I should get out with what I've got. So those are two things I think can be added onto what you guys are talking about.
You mentioned airdrops, Harley. Do you think airdrops as like a meta is kind of ending? I've heard this sentiment across the board that like people feel like airdrops are kind of winding down because it feels like anytime you launch a project through an airdrop, no matter what you do, people just get mad at you. And it just kind of feels like people are kind of tired of farming points, etc. And it's almost like the market's looking for a new distribution mechanism. But I'd be curious to hear your guys' takes, and we'll start with you, Harley.
I don't think airdrops are over. I heard a lot of people calling for like a dead kind of summer with them anyways. Some people are also calling it over, but I think you're going to get a couple big ones to come back and people rush back into it. I think it's just like everything else. There's recency bias. There hasn't been a big one lately. And people are just kind of worn down. The margins on your airdrops have been trimmed by the companies because they send out all these tokens and they're getting slammed. They're getting industrially farmed. So I think the days of like the wormhole airdrop I got for like on one wallet, I think I did like one transaction, and then another one I did two, and I think I got a few grand on each of those wallets. I don't think that's like in the future anymore. But I think it's still going to be there because it is a useful way to be able to like get users up front, right? Get some fees up front, like raise without having to actually go sell anything. So I don't think it's over. I think it's just a lot less upside.
What about you, Andy?
Well, I'm not an airdrop a guy. I've taken part in a handful of them. I mean, is it going away? I mean, certainly not. We're going to get into a crypto bull run, and same old tricks are always going to happen. Same things are going to happen all over again. People are going to use it. Do I think that there's going to be evolutions of it, or different mechanisms for launching things over time, or maybe we see airdrops morph into something different? Well, then, yeah. I mean, there's all of crypto has shifting trends and tweaks to the system, and we don't do probably airdrops the same way we did them just a couple years ago. But yeah, the idea that they're dead seems a little crazy to me, especially when even in this environment, I still have people in my community who are doing some of these and still making thousands of dollars from just clicking around and spending some gas fees,
So I'd say, I think you have to look at like, why do we have airdrops in the first place? And I think one of the reasons is like, as a project, you want your token to be held by a lot of people, like a lot of diversification, more people holding your token, the better. It's not all in like a few hands, not as centralized. But I think the other main reason projects have done it is really because of regulation reasons. It's kind of a way to get around having people be a part of your project instead of them buying through it in an ICO, which you can't do. Now it's like, incentivize them to spend money in your product and kind of make your product valuable that way, get users, and then kind of promise to kind of, lightly, not really promise, but give them tokens later on in an airdrop. And I think that's really the main reason it happens, is because of those regulation things. And so I don't think it's going away, at least, until some of that regulation stuff changes. But I think we do see with airdrops, it's like a new version of it works really well. And then all the other projects kind of try to copy it and do it as well. And that's when it starts to not work as well. Like we see projects come out and do kind of a similar thing. And that's when like the airdrop farmers and, people kind of take advantage of it too much because it's not a kind of a new thing, and it doesn't seem to work as well. So I think that's kind of what's happened, at least with some of these more recent airdrops, where it just has not gone that well. They've been farmed too much. They're kind of just following the same pattern, and everyone kind of knows what they're doing. So I think we'll have to see. So I don't think they'll go away, but I think we will kind of, for them to be effective, need to see them kind of transform a little bit of like, how projects do these airdrops.
I think I agree with you guys. So they're just going to change and adapt and become different, but you got to distribute tokens somehow, and hopefully it gets better and not worse, but we'll see. As always, none of this was investment advice. None of this was us telling you to invest in anything or do anything. This is just our opinions and a kind of fun entertainment based show. You should always do your own research and figure those things out for yourself. And man, I forget how I'm supposed to end this. Was it keep it hard, my homies? Was that how we decided?
Oh, no, go hard.
Oh yeah. And as always, go hard, my friends.
Go hard.
Maybe we should say it in sync, like in sync. like literally like Backstreet Boys. So I'm gonna say as always, and then you guys are gonna all say, "Go hard, my friends." Let's just try that. Let's see if it feels
right,
awesome.
let's do it. Let's
and
run it.
we'll just know. Okay, ready? And as always,
Go hard,
my
friends.
That was terrible.
That was the worst thing ever.
We're all off.